Hi, this is Sandy Wiemers. I teach at Arc City Middle School. I teach foods.
And I'm Kim Dohm, and I teach at Wheatland High School, and I teach family and consumer sciences, including foods classes.
And this is our module 4 for educational theory. The theory that we chose is the experiential learning theory, or ELT. So after we did our research, the first credit I found that was given to this theory could have been credited to Aristotle, who wrote, "For the things we have to learn before we can do them, we learn by doing them." But the modern theory was developed by David Kolb in '84, and he drew heavily upon work from John Dewey, Kurt Lewin, and Jean Piaget. So this focuses on learning by doing. So it's driven by experience, but what I found is it's much more than just hands-on. And something that a quote that came to mind for me is I hear, I know, I see, I remember, I do, I understand, which um, I think for me, especially if I were to, just like, for example, if someone was riding their bike, if they were going to read about how to do it, then they're going to be a lot more successful if they can actually just go out and learn how to do it. So I felt, especially for what we do, this ties in really well to our content. So there's 4 stages, and they have different terms, but essentially it's experience it. So you do it, you have the experience, and then you reflect on it, which I think is a big part, makes it different from this just being hands-on. You learn from your reflection and the new idea or modifying your existing ideas, and then you plan or try out what you learned. So just some examples, like rather than just watching a video about photosynthesis, you actually grow a garden to learn how.
Some of the benefits of of ELT is that studies show that people are more likely to retain information when they absorb it through multiple senses. And this can be, we hear it, as the quote says, and then we see it, and then we do it. So kind of reinforcing the information with lots of different media, as they would say in like an art class. Um, when students can understand things by experience, it gives them some real world experiences and kind of shows them how that this may actually um, work in the real world, just like growing the garden. In our foods class this year, we took students to a hydroponic lettuce farm. So, because all the students love this lettuce, they've been buying it at the grocery store, and they tell me, make sure you get the 4B Farms lettuce. Well, do you know why it tastes good? Do you know why it's really good? Let's go to the farm. Let's see it. Let's experience how this is done in the real world. This helps students being one-on-one or being more hands-on, helps them to be more creative and encourages problem solving. It lets them make mistakes when they're doing things that they can reflect on later and do better the next time. So in foods class, we do this quite a bit. We'll reflect on the recipe. What went wrong? Well, I didn't really follow the recipe that well. I wanted to do it this way, and it didn't work so great. So I thought it was also interesting that a 2013 Gallup student poll survey found that the most important non-cognitive factor correlated to academic success is engagement. And so by having students actively participate in learning helps them feel engaged. Students can make more connections and have more higher order thinking when they actively engage and participate in the learning process.
Good. And that's a good example. I remember when we made cookies, I had some that I told them, you need 2 cookie sheets and 12 on each. And I had some that, like, well, for my second one, we're just going to make 3 big ones because they thought it'll just be so great. Well, it didn't turn out great, and they basically ended up with a lot of dough. And so being able to make that mistake, it was a really good teachable moment for everybody. And so I think that is a big part of it, where I think everybody, especially today, kids are so afraid to make mistakes, but it was really good for them to see that, okay,
Mhm.
why is it that we need to have a certain amount of dough and have them spaced out? So that was really good there. Um, so in guiding, planning our instruction and assessment, I think this, as we talked about, this aligns really well. Like I just teach foods for facts, but so much of what we do is hands-on. We learn by doing. But again, the big part of this is not just having the hands-on experience, it's making sure that all the stages are there. So an example of how this could be done, so reflecting could be a post-lab reflection where they talk about what went well, what didn't go well, what they learned, questions they might still have. And then through this reflection, the thinking stage can come in where they can come up with a new idea. Or again, here, if they can modify an existing concept that they thought, like with the cookies, well, that doesn't work. And then through future labs, they can experiment with what they've learned and apply it to new situations. So it's just kind of an ongoing process. Um, in one example, I was thinking about in my class is when we did how to measure flour, because a lot of them just, they've kind of been taught like they just go in and scoop with the measuring cup. And so we talked about the proper technique. And so they learn the proper technique, they reflect on how it's different than what they've learned, and then having them discuss what they think is going to be, if there's going to be a difference. And a lot of them didn't think there would be. But then when they actually went and I had them practice, where they had to fluff, spoon it in, and level it, and then they had to weigh it and compare. And I feel like it was much more effective doing this than just having them um, me teach it. Even just me demonstrating it, I think it would have been less effective, and definitely it was more effective than if we just would have read about it or watched a video. But having them being able to do that, I think it made a huge difference. um, yeah. And then we also, something else I found is we always have trouble with aprons and getting the big octopus because they don't
Mhm.
tie a knot in them. And so I finally got to where we would actively practice tying knots rather than just me showing them, like having them do it, because it just, there's another connection there when they have to do it themselves rather than just listening to it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of examples we can use with foods as far as how to incorporate ELT. But another way I incorporated it a couple years ago was the child development class.
Mhm.
We were actually studying exactly what we're studying this week, these theorists, and we were studying like Eric Erickson. So I had the students go during class because elementary school is only half a mile away. So, and I only had like 5 kids in the class. So I just, reserved like the suburban, and I took them over every day one week, and they each observed an elementary school class. And they observed the students in the class, and that way they could compare what they're observing with those stages, and do we think all the students are where they need to be? How they differed, like how the kindergarten class differed from the fourth grade class, and things like that. So putting them out there in the real world to see stuff and not just have to memorize it on a chart or a piece of paper, I think really helped them connect with the
Absolutely.
material we were learning.
Oh yeah, that's great. I feel like it just makes it's definitely higher level for them. So a challenge or question I have. So when in the research, a lot of what I found was this is really driven by student engagement and their buy-in and their motivation. But for when I teach an elective in middle school, not all students are in there because they want to be, and some of them are just in there because they got put in there. And so I guess what my challenge here is how to get them kind of bought in or motivated with this theory with when there really isn't, and how to make it even if it's just relatable to the real world, because I feel like that's shouldn't be that difficult to get across to them, but some of them just act like they don't care. And
Mhm.
so that's a challenge I definitely have, because I feel like they're with no matter what theory or method we're teaching, obviously if they're motivated and engaged, they're gonna get more out of it. But I kind of felt like with this theory, that is that they really have to be to get something out of it. So do you ever
Yes, and
struggle with that?
in high school, it's an elective class, and the students they sign up for it, so nobody has to take any of these classes. However, the problem comes with the attitude from high schoolers is that, well, this is an elective, so you can't make it that hard.
Yep.
We just want to come in here and bake cookies.
Yep.
You know, they have the attitude that they don't want to, do anything. They just want to do what they want, and it shouldn't be that hard of a class. And I
Mm-hmm.
have some attitude when I tell them, okay, well, we're going to do this unit and you're going to prepare a presentation to give to your classmates. Why do we have to present something? This is facts class, and so they cop that attitude. And so I just let them know that, yes, it's an elective class. You don't have to be in here, but we are going to learn,
Mm-hmm.
and you will have, it is school. Um, the students will bust in the door, coming into class, and they'll yell, I put a stop to this really quickly. What do we need today? Do we need a pencil, paper? Oh my goodness, yes, it's school.
Yep.
Assume that you need to bring
Yep.
your materials to class. So, even though they choose to take the class, sometimes they are halfway there or
Yep.
not that engaged. So, it is a challenge to make all these things that we do um, engaging, purposeful for them, to let them know it has use. And I think the hardest part for me is getting the students to reflect
Yep.
on the process and what they've done and what they could do better. Because when they're done, they're done.
Yep.
And they'll be like, oh, that was a flop. And, to get them to actually sit and reflect on what they've done and how they could do better is pretty hard, with that age group. But we just got to keep trying and keep working with them to keep them engaged. And I do think family consumer sciences is just phenomenal. We can do anything we want with
Absolutely.
like our background is so broad as far as like our standards, even with
Mhm.
the national standards for family consumer sciences. And I have a big poster in the classroom that has the mission statement that has in it, help students be successful.
Yep.
And if you can't write a paragraph, then we're
Right.
going to learn how to do that, even
Right.
if you're a sophomore and this is not English class,
Right.
because you need to do that to be successful. So
Right.
that's what we're going to learn. Um, I had students tell me last year that they couldn't read my remarks on their papers because they don't know how to read cursive.
I
Well, we're
know.
going to learn that
Yep.
because, I'm not going to tell you you have to know how to write it, but you're
You
going
at
to
least
have to know how to read people's
right.
writing
Right.
out in the real world. You're going to
Right.
learn how to read cursive writing because that is a skill you need.
Yep.
So, just things like that I love about family consumer sciences because, hey, well, we're going to learn it then.
Right.
That's what you need to learn.
Well, and that's what I started doing, a reflection at the end of each food lab, and it was written. And then I went to a Google form, and eventually I just got to where I dropped it because so many of them weren't doing it. And I felt guilty for having them failing the class when they did the food lab, but I was withholding their grade because they didn't do it. But now, especially after being in reading and in writing and in through
Mm-hmm.
instruction, that class, I realized that yes, like they should be doing this in every class, and it's not that much, but especially with this, the reflection is a big part
Mm-hmm.
of that. And making, I have to be very intentional about setting time, and I think I need to model better, like, okay, what are we trying to do out of this? It's not just, because I think they'd be like, yeah, it was great, Yeah, I would make it again, because some of that I would
Mhm.
look at. I wanted to know on the recipe, did they really like it, or what did they not like about it? Because one of them she'd say no on everything, and then come to find out she's just like, she finally told me, she's like, I don't like food, like, and I was like, why are you in this class? They put me in here, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to know that stuff. But definitely from this, I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring back the reflections and make it they have to do that, because it is a big part of it, and they need to learn and make those connect, because that's where those connections are made, where, okay, so the cookies were a flop, or this was a flop, why was it a flop, so that they can understand that moving forward. And part of it, I think we're always going to have students that aren't engaged or aren't motivated,
Mhm.
and I feel like we do a lot to make our classes fun and engaging, but there's always going to be those students, so I'm just going to focus on the ones who are motivated and engaged, and if they decide to come along, then great. But I'm not gonna lose sleep if I feel like I've done everything I can to get them there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I had one student that loved baking, but he hated vegetables. So,
Hmm.
like anything we did that wasn't baking, honestly, he made it miserable for the whole class because he would complain
Oh,
so much. And I'm just like, okay, we are working on vegetables today, on steaming vegetables, and just don't say anything. Just go
yep.
back there and do the work. Don't complain about it,
Right.
because this is part of foods as well. I mean, you don't just get to
Right.
come in here and make yeast bread every day, even though he
Right.
made phenomenal yeast rolls.
Right.
There's a little bit more to what we need to do as well. And it's so challenging when you have those difficult students that, you know, are going to be, I hate this. This is not what I want to do. I
Right.
only want to bake.
Right.
Oh,
I know.
sorry.
Exactly. And had he tried a lot of vegetables, or had he not?
Oh, he don't even eat them.
So he doesn't
And
really
and
know.
he wouldn't even like open his mind. Like I had him do a unit, we did a unit on nutrition, and they had to come up with a 1 week healthy menu for themselves.
Hmm.
They didn't have to eat the menu. They didn't have to cook it and do it. They just had to, I wanted to know that they could create a menu for themselves of foods that they could eat, a healthy menu. And his was just like Pop Tart, Pop Tart, Pop Tart, Pop Tart, Pop Tart, pizza, pizza, pizza.
Ooh.
Because I'm like, you have to think outside the box here. I know you like eggs
Right.
because you eat eggs in class sometimes. So, you know, eggs and toast. And he's just like, I would never get up and fix myself eggs and toast in the morning.
I know
So I
it.
just eat a Pop Tart. I'm like,
It's
well,
so sad. It's so
ah.
sad what, because a lot of ours, our town is very low socioeconomic, and I thought a lot of them would be making, casseroles. Not, they eat out all the time, so
Mm-hmm,
not realizing that that's more expensive.
mm-hmm,
So that's what my goal for them, because a lot of them, they have multi-generational households, but parents are at work when they get home, and they're caring for a lot of younger siblings. And so I told him, like, my goal is that you look in your pantry and you can say, okay, I can take this and this and put this together and make a meal. And
mm-hmm,
it just, I don't know, it's different when you realize like what they're really eating and what they're really
mm-hmm.
doing, like that, like Pop Tart every day. Like, you just think of how is that affecting their focus and just everything. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not to eat a vegetable and not even like,
Right.
you know,
Right.
anything.
Do you do
Um,
any kind of like, because I thought about trying to incorporate, not anti-beef, 'cause I'm from a beef family,
mm-hmm,
but like trying to just even expose them a little bit to like a plant-based, partially just to, for one thing, because a lot of times like the beans and everything are
mm-hmm,
cheaper than beef or
mm-hmm.
other proteins. Do you do anything like that with your foods classes?
I do. I've started, well, we do a few like vegetarian
Yep.
dishes,
Mm-hmm.
like lasagna and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we make hummus,
Oh,
so they can
wow.
do that. So we've made the hummus, and then we used like a chili, but we used beans and quinoa, which quinoa is not necessarily cheap,
Right.
but it was actually really good,
Uh-huh.
not using the beef in that. So I've done a few things because I
Good
do
idea.
a unit on the non-protein or non-meat
Right.
proteins.
Okay.
And they really got into the couscous. They loved that. And they would, bring it after the unit was over, put in the cabinet. So when they had extra time, they'd be like, "Oh, can we just make us a little couscous today or whatever?"
Oh,
They did not like the hummus. That did not
oh,
go over
really?
well. I thought it would,
I know. I
but they were like, "Yuck,
feel
this
like
is
hummus
gross."
and guacamole are kind of a love hate. Like,
Yes, and we've done guacamole too, and most of them like that. And we
hmm
made a lot of salsa because we
right.
had so many tomatoes on my garden last year at the beginning of the school year. But the hummus, they were not impressed.
See, I thought about that's a good idea. I think the main thing is I just don't push it as like plant-based or whatever, because I know
Hmm.
some people around here would be like, what are you teaching? But I
Yes, you
just think,
can't do that in beef country. I mean,
no.
but we did do some items just to say, hey, we can build a lasagna without
Yep.
meat, mainly because we just didn't, I just presented it as we're just going to do it with veggies and cheese because the cheese is so expensive anyway to
Right.
make a lasagna. If you're
Right.
doing cottage cheese and ricotta,
Yeah.
lasagna is an expensive dish.
Right.
Um, so
That's a
yeah,
good idea. But even like the
but
chili, because yeah, you don't have to have, when you get all the beans, you got all the protein
mhm.
in there. That's a good idea.
Well,
Yeah.
it's definitely interesting. The kids definitely want a meat with
Yep.
whatever they're doing.
Yep.
That's just the culture. Potatoes were big. They loved
Mhm.
making potatoes. Um, and I let them make a lot of mistakes in that. These two
Mhm.
kids decided they were going to make potatoes, and I don't know where they got this recipe. And they didn't even chop up the potato, they put it in the water whole. And I know people do that if they're making a
Right.
huge, like a
Right.
big, huge stock pot of it. And I'm like, guys, your potato ain't even going to be done by the end of class.
How long are your
You're
classes?
not even going to get they're 45 minutes. But by the
Oh,
time the water boiled
right.
and they put two big potatoes down in the water, I'm like, it's not even going to be done.
No,
What are
that's
you going
not
to do? Like, cool it down and wait till tomorrow? And you all should dice these potatoes. No, we don't have to. The recipe didn't say that.
oh, I
But
love
I'm
it.
telling you, I am telling you, you need to dice these
I love it.
potatoes down. And they
I love it.
didn't. They didn't get their potatoes. I wasted them. But like I told you, like I tried to
But
tell you.
that's great
Um,
though, because they'll remember that.
mm-hmm,
They'll remember that so much more. Absolutely. What I found, the teacher before me, she did a lot of probably like how I grew up, like a lot of casseroles and things that are
mm-hmm,
really high in like fat and sodium, and but what surprised me is a lot of the students hated it. Like she would
mm-hmm,
even just make rotel, and
mm-hmm,
like a lot of them, they want more flavor and more spice, and so it kind of surprised me. So I don't know, I'm kind of excited to, I pretty much did what she had done in the past, and I'm going to
mm-hmm,
try some different things. And I don't know, it was encouraging because I thought they'd want like just all the bacon and cheese and all that, and they really didn't.
mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, the students are pretty open. Like before me, the teacher that had retired, she hadn't done a lot of cooking.
oh
Even in her
wow.
foods class, they cooked twice last year. And
In
it's
the
just
whole
because
year?
in the whole year, and she was older. Like she should have retired a long time ago. So I think she was just
And is
a,
it a facts
a
class where you're covering everything in under
well,
facts?
some of them are, but then like introduction to facts for freshmen is like you kind of do everything, a
Right.
little bit of everything. But the advanced foods is for people who just want to learn nutrition and cooking.
And is that
And then
what
I
she
have
cooked twice in?
yeah. And so they were just happy to be in the kitchen.
Oh
So I mean,
yeah.
if we were in the kitchen 2 or 3 days a week, they were happy with that.
Wow. See, and
I
that's
would get
my
groceries at the beginning of the week. We would do our things, and a lot of times on Fridays, we would do what I call free cook Friday. Like you say, just
that's
go get to the
cool.
pantry and the refrigerator and use up the rest of these ingredients and make something.
Did you give them
You know,
something they had to use, or did you
just
just give
whatever
them
our
free will?
leftovers were from the
Okay.
week. You know, and using pantry stuff. and say, just go
Awesome.
cook something today.
I
Just
kind of want to do that. It's
with
hard
middle
to,
schoolers, it'd be different.
yeah,
And with my class, I only had 8 students, and there's 4 cooking stations, so they're in
right,
pairs.
right,
So in 4 stations, they can go and grab,
right,
you know. And I said, don't overcook, just cook enough for what you all can eat, and then
right.
come back and get after school sometimes. Sometimes they would come back and eat what they made before they would go to practice, or sometimes they would come get it after practice because the door's open, and
Oh, that's cool.
so they wanted their class to be 4th hour right before lunch, but it wasn't until 7th hour. So, um, but just giving them that after we got comfortable in the kitchen and they had plenty of experience, we
Right.
started doing those free cook Fridays and they loved it. They
That's
loved it.
awesome. I think because we had 90 minutes last year and we're going to have 45. And with middle schoolers, I did at the end of the year, I brought in a bunch of stuff from home and I was going to do kind of like a chopped and give them one ingredient.
Hmm.
But I thought, you know what, I'm just going to let them. And a lot of them did, like I had elk. I brought elk from
Hmm.
home and beef. And a lot of them just did like mac and cheese with elk and bacon and tater tot casserole with like, so they did very,
Hmm.
I was trying to get them to be more creative. And I think what I'd have to do is give them time to plan it out and
Hmm.
help them. Because they don't, a lot of them don't have enough experience to be able to throw that
Hmm.
together. But I think it's so good for them to be able to kind of, after they've learned, like throw things
Hmm.
together and experiment and see. And I just think that's fun. See
Yeah, we did
what
some
works out.
chopped as well, like some competitions through the year with that, and they love it. It was so fun.
Fun.
They love those competitions, and they like um, for FCCLA
Mhm.
on our fall event. I had a student sign up in pairs, and they didn't have to be food students for this, but to do a chili cook off. And so I let 4
Awesome.
teams enter because I have 4 kitchens.
Uh-huh.
So they did a chili cook off on our fall event for FCCLA, and they really enjoyed that.
That's
Then we
fun.
had a cupcake war, which the cupcakes are already done. So all they had to do was frost them.
Hmm.
So we had already made the cupcakes and already made the frosting before. So all they had to do was like color the
Right.
frosting and decorate it so that it wasn't like an all day
Right.
ordeal. But those little competitions, the students really get into it.
Did you have like teachers judge that?
I did. I got like 3 teachers to come and judge the chili.
Hmm.
And they didn't know which students made which chili.
That's amazing.
So it was really cool. And then the same with the cupcake decorating. They made a plate, a presentation, and
Hmm.
then I had different teachers come in and judge the cupcakes, and they didn't know whose
Who did
were
what?
whose.
Did you give
So
prizes to the winners?
I don't remember if I gave them prizes or not. I
Okay.
think I did. I had gotten some Sonic gift cards.
Okay. Because I
Um,
did, I did a couple. Like I did the Little Debbie challenge, and I felt like to get them invested and to want to work hard, I needed to give them prizes. And so, like,
mhm,
there's a junior chef, or what, it's from some TV show, a cookbook. And so I gave that. And then we did a pizza around the world where they had to research a country and then they had to come up with because the last thing I wanted them to learn was pizza, how to make pizza dough. So they had to make a pizza, but it had to be representative of that country. So
mhm,
not necessarily just spices or whatever, but like they could, like from Japan, they could make a ramen pizza.
mhm.
Um, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna give you guys prizes. And I was like, I don't know if it's necessary because I think some of them will just do it, and it gets expensive. Because at that point
Yeah.
they'd shut off our spending, and so I'm but spending all of my own money, and I'm like, I don't know if
Well, for FCCLA, I did get prizes for those things, but for my class, I don't really give prizes. We just kind of have bragging rights,
right.
and the students are like, "Oh, we won this," and I take pictures
Mm-hmm.
of their stuff, and so sometimes I'll print it in color and put it
Oh, that's
up,
cool.
But I don't. In my regular class, I didn't give any prizes.
Okay.
I
I
mean,
know.
I
I think
figure
I
they
need
get
to,
to eat their food. That's a prize
right.
enough if it
And I
turns
think I
out
need to
good.
get over that because I think
Um,
again there'll be some students who don't care and don't put effort into it, and some who do, and yeah, it doesn't always need to be a prize.
no, yeah, I never do prizes for just the basic class because I couldn't think of anything. I mean, I think I spend a lot already on groceries. So if I were to start adding other things,
Right.
I don't know if they would.
Yeah, I was trying to find something my co-teacher did because she did a food truck challenge, and she gave them gift cards, and I was trying to find something to be cheaper, and they have our school colors are purple, and I found on Amazon like a 12 pack of purple aprons, and I wanted to get like our mascot like printed on it, but I didn't have time, and so I gave because I have groups of 4 and I had 3 classes, so I had to give out 12 aprons, and I was like, I can't do this every time we have a competition. But
Yeah,
and
it's
so
too
that's the
much.
thing is, some of them were like they loved it, and then I think some were just like, okay, an apron.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Right.
Yeah. You shouldn't have.
Exactly.
Oh, well, I had my basic freshman class, the introduction class. I said, if you want to take foods next year, our sewing project was a pillowcase. So
Mhm.
everybody had to do a pillowcase because it's so easy. And that's like my weakest link is sewing.
Mhm.
And I said, but if you want to take a foods class and you want to make an apron, you can make an apron. And I had 2 boys in this class that were like, I'm going to make an apron. And they even used the embroidery machine and embroidered
Oh,
their
you have an
initials
embroidery
on it.
machine?
We do that. See, the last facts teacher was more into sewing and
Sewing.
fabrics
Mm-hmm.
than foods. And so she had all these, we have lots of sewing machines and lots of fabrics and lots of stuff for embroidery, and I'm just still learning how to use
Yeah,
these
it's a
things. I actually
lot.
had to get our librarian to come help us with the embroidery machine because it's very expensive. It's a
Yes.
nice one.
So
And
my mom is into all of that, and quilts and does
I
everything.
was afraid to use it because I thought
Yeah.
I'd break it. So I'd have her come in and help with those type of things, which she really enjoys doing.
Oh
So,
yeah.
and then we gave her a gift card.
Oh,
Like
that's
at the end of the
cool.
year, we gave her a gift card because she helped us so much with our sewing.
So did they get
Um,
to pick like the material for their apron, the guys?
they did. They could. I said you can go out to Walmart and buy whatever you want and bring it. Or in the closet, there was 5 boxes of
Mhm.
cloth back there, old cloth. I said, or you can go back there and just pick some old cloth. I mean, there's just all
Right.
this old material, and they both just went and picked something out of the closet. They didn't care.
Oh,
They
cool.
both did solid purple,
Uh-huh.
like just solid purple color. There's tons of that in there, and that's what I told them with their pillowcase. I said you can either pick fabric from back here that's been here for, I mean, it's good fabric, or you can go to Walmart and buy your
Right.
own. And I had some of the girls brought their own cute little fabric in, but none of the boys did. They
You're
just,
like, I'll just do, yeah,
I'll
use
just
it
do
up.
whatever. But they
Yep.
really enjoyed the sewing unit.
That's awesome.
Kind of surprised me,
Right.
but
Yeah. We have a semester long sewing classes, and it kind of the same thing. It surprises me just, and part of it is expensive. And I feel
mm-hmm,
like it's a hobby that's kind of not necessarily dying, but there's not as many people doing it,
mm-hmm.
but it's expensive. And I know a lot of stores like our Walmart quit selling fabric, and it's harder to
Oh,
get. So
wow.
yeah,
Mm. Or at least ours still sells fabric because you can really do some cute things.
you can.
So, and I have
Yeah.
some girls that are really into it. So for FCCLA, I was hoping they would do some, those 20-inch doll girl
Yep.
clothes, and
That's a
we
great
could sell
idea.
them for
Yes.
like around Christmas time
Yep.
for people to buy for their little girls' 20-inch dolls.
That's fantastic.
We have, I think, 14 sewing machines
Wow.
in their individual desks.
Yep.
I only had 4 up and going last year because it's overwhelming to me because I'm
Yes.
not
Well, she and
that
she does it
great.
with she does it with sixth graders. I'm like, I don't know how, because I think she's got like 20, 24 in this
Oh
classroom.
my goodness. I
With
would
with sixth graders. And
mm.
she's like, we spend a month on threading the machine. And
It does take a while to even get the machine
yep.
threaded and ready to go. I
Yep.
had to watch YouTube video tutorials before I even
Oh,
could know how to
it
do it.
yeah. It's its own language.
Um, and
Oh, I
I
think
sewed
we're
my
about
own pillowcase. I did it right with the
you did?
students. I
That's
did.
awesome.
Because I'm like, I'm not a very good sewer and I need to learn right with you guys. And so I just
Mhm.
My background is foods and nutrition and healthcare type things.
Right.
So sewing is not my thing.
That's awesome that you did it with them.
I did it right
I
with
bet they
them.
love it. Loved
Yeah,
it.
and when the librarian told me I had to pull out my stitches because they weren't straight enough, oh, they loved that. They thought it was hilarious because she'd give us the little thing that you had to pull out your stitches if you didn't get it straight. Ha Miss Dohm, you have to do it too. They loved it.
That's hilarious. Oh, that's funny. No, that's good though. That's good that you can kind of, but it would be a little overwhelming to have to learn that and teach and
Yeah, because I don't, but I had her help and I said, we'll just all do it together. We'll learn
right,
it together.
right.
I'll get better each year, hopefully. And, you know,
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think we're done. I'm gonna stop the recording.